We were essentially DDoSing ourselves with this uninstall tracking because of the way it worked. It like fired like a silent ping at 11 a.m. every morning to every single user.
Hello and welcome to Mobile Heroes Uncensored, episode number sweet 16. My name is John Koetsier. My co-host is Peggy and Salz, and today we are chatting literally with the godfather of the mobile growth stack and two amazing marketers from Stash and Gymondo. Our topics: subscriptions and getting back some of the money that Apple takes. We also work hard to embarrass each and every one of us, and we get every marketer's top tip. But first, the most amazing joke you've ever heard. Perhaps, maybe, possibly. So, Peggy, you know that I write, right?
Yes, I do.
I do some screenwriting actually, and I just signed a real big deal. Actually, an amazing 2-year deal with the parent company of Universal Pictures. Super pumped.
All right.
Super pumped. Guess what? I'm getting the basic cable plus HBO. Oh, you know you love it, Peggy. You know you love it.
I do. It's the torture I adore.
Yep, exactly. But Peggy, we have some news to chat about, right? I mean, there's something happened with Epic and Apple. I don't know, something about the App Store. No big deal, right? I mean, nothing that anybody really cares about. I mean, opening up payments on the App Store, kind of cool.
Absolutely. Kind of cool and going to change a ton. I mean, I'd love to hear what you have to say, but hey, we're opening up to everybody. So I'm like, I'm like victory. I'm like thinking this is interesting. So
Kate, do you think that's interesting actually?
I do think it's interesting. I mean, first of all, it's going to really cut down on how much Apple is able to take from each iOS app. And then I think also, I read an article about it last week where someone basically stopped themselves short of calling Apple a monopoly and saying that this was going to like stop the monopoly. And
I was going to say they were stopped short or they were taken off the streets when they said that. You know?
Exactly.
One or the other. One or the other. Exactly. Andy, was that interesting news for you? What were you thinking when you saw that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a big change. I'm sure Apple is not going to like that one bit. Actually, I saw that there was a very similar ruling in Korea, actually, that also incorporates Google. So, like, you know, this was, I think, from the Competition Commission. That was back in, I think, August, where in Korea, both Apple and Google are being forced to allow alternate payment processes in. So I feel like this is, you know, a tide which is going to be pretty unstoppable. And I wouldn't be surprised if Google is kind of, you know, forced to do this elsewhere as well.
You are so right. Yeah. You are so right. Absolutely. There's also Japan has published something about that. We've seen something come up in India as well. The EU has been talking around this for quite some time as well. Jenny, is this interesting for you guys? Is this something that you're thinking of? Hey, maybe there's something to take advantage of there?
I mean, me representing the brand side right now, for sure, this is interesting news to us. Looking at the 15 to 30% that we might save here. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how it all evolves.
Nice. Other piece of news, Peggy, iOS 15 is dropping on September 20th. That is in literally 5 days from when we're recording this. It'll probably be happening almost when we're publishing this. That's a really big deal. There's new privacy provisions in there. Yeah. There's new private relay. There's some VPNing and probably some other things that'll come in 15.1 and 15.2 and maybe some SKAdNetwork updates and all that stuff. Andy, are you kind of looking forward to iOS 15, or are you kind of thinking, no, stay away?
No, we really welcome it. Actually, at Phiture, you know, the big change, you know, from our perspective, we do a lot of App Store optimization, so helping companies to, you know, generate more organic traffic and do a lot of conversion rate optimization work and testing. But up until now, it's not been possible to test directly on the iOS App Store. We mostly test on Google and then port those learnings across and see if they hold on Apple, you know. But with iOS 15, it's going to be possible to do A/B testing. You know, for every app can A/B test their assets, like their screenshots, their icons and stuff directly on the real app store, which is a huge win actually for developers.
I couldn't agree more. Jenny, is that something you've been waiting for?
I mean, is there going to be anything worse than iOS 14.5? So
you are a rock star. You guys are all a rock star. So just so everybody knows who's watching or listening, Peggy and I totally sprung this on people. We have a list of questions that we provide people. Usually we totally deviate it from it. But, this time we totally threw in a new segment, which is news, and you guys are acting like pros. Kate, what are you thinking when you're thinking iOS 15?
I agree. The ability to A/B test within the App Store is going to be huge. Andy, we do the exact same thing where we test on Google and then we just apply all the learnings to Apple and hope for the best, cross our fingers. I also kind of have to agree with Jenny in that, with 14.5, there was such buildup and everything they told us along the way. A lot of those things ended up not really happening. And then they were doing a lot of things that they weren't announcing. So I think it'll be interesting to see what it actually looks like when it is out in the wild. But I agree, it can't be worse. So
it can't be worse.
I love that comment. I absolutely love that comment. That's awesome. I think that's great. You know what? We got to talk about Android. We'll talk about Android next time. I feel like Android gets like no airtime because everything is happening on iOS. The privacy stuff happens first there, the SKAdNetwork, all that stuff. But it is coming. We know Google's working on a few things there. So maybe next news we'll talk about that. Hey, I got to give one more joke because it is super late for Peggy. You may not have noticed, but she's drinking. I think it's whiskey or something like that. Show us, Peggy. Show us. Come on, lift that up there. She says it's ginger ale, but I mean, like, does anybody really believe that? So I have to wake her up a little bit. Here's another joke. And we were doing kind of a road trip recently, right? We went to Germany, kind of, right? With Mobile Heroes. We talked to German Mobile Heroes, and that was cool.
Yeah.
We got to go to other countries as well. And I was thinking, and maybe Switzerland would be cool. And I was thinking, what's the best thing about Switzerland, Peggy?
I was going to say chocolate, but that's me,
I like chocolate too, but honestly, I don't really know. All I know is the flag is a big plus.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jenny hates that joke, but I got a smile from her anyways. That's awesome. It was so bad. It was the charity laugh from Andy. Thank you so much, Andy. You are awesome. So we have been talking with these people, Peggy, but we have not introduced them. And guess what? That's your job. You've been delinquent. How is that even possible? Who are we talking to today?
Well, John, aside from having rock stars who have gone through our guinea pig session here, I'll introduce them individually now. So we'll start off with Kate. And when I introduce you, hey, say hi, make a heart, do whatever you want to do. Hey, Kate, Director of Growth at Stash, as you can read in her title there. But she's also overseeing acquisition, growth, monetization efforts. Her colleagues, yes, I do dig into this, John. Her colleagues call her the heart and soul of any team she's in. Yes. They note she excels at building out PowerPoint decks, strengthening client relationships, leading by example, and a talent you won't find on LinkedIn or anywhere. She's a karaoke queen.
That is true.
I almost want to demand a demo of that, but that's probably a bridge too far, and I don't have any music. But Kate, I'll throw this at you. So we interview experts here, and everybody's an expert here as well. And it's amazing. All of us experts, we have this weak spot. We have this thing that we didn't know, or this other thing. What is one obvious thing about mobile marketing that you just didn't know for years?
That I didn't know for years. At least for maybe the first 2 years of my mobile career, I was pretty oblivious to what a burst campaign was or how anything like that would be presented to me. And I had to learn that one the hard way when I was at Jump Ramp Games. And, one of my partners offered me some kind of like one-time thing, and, it would just be running for this weekend, but we expect to see like a good amount of volume. I said, okay, that's great. And I didn't give them a cap or anything. And I think it spent, like $40,000 in a day or something. So, and after that, I learned what a burst campaign was.
Pain is a wonderful teacher. Back to you, Peggy.
Can't beat that one. That's a tough act to follow. Although I think Jenny, when she was filling out her marketing nightmare, she had something similar. So we'll hear about it. Jenny Schmidt, team lead social and influencer marketing at Gymondo. Expert for all things influencer and social media, based out of Berlin. That's where she's also had a lot of success with Gymondo. But when she's not working on amazing campaigns, what is she doing? Well, she's a speaker, consultant, abstract painter. Pretty interesting. And spoiler alert, John, she's gearing up to build her own business. And I'm sure we're going to hear a little bit about that.
Wow, that is quite the resume there. Huge respect. That's amazing. I have one question for you as well. You know, like all of us have this one thing that, you know what, we're amazing elsewhere, but this one thing that we just can't do. What is your marketing kryptonite? The one thing you just hate?
There's not just one thing. There's several, but how do I say? Well, if you talk about blind spots, rather, I would say, you were mentioning Android earlier. I have to say, I'm Apple through and through. So Android is something that I haven't really had any touch points with, neither in marketing nor privately.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's an admission. Never anything other than Apple. So on to our last, Andy Carvell, partner, co-founder at Phiture. And hey, that's a mobile growth consultancy in Berlin. I didn't realize this myself, John. Over 100 staff at this point. Pretty impressive.
Are you kidding me? I had no idea.
No, this is the real deal.
Impressive.
He's building. His colleagues, again, I've been around, right? Call him a combination thinker and doer, an exceptional innovator and marketer, and this is my favorite, a right decent bloke. And before that, he led retention at SoundCloud. So he led the retention team there. And we know him all as the man who published the Mobile Growth Stack, the Bible, the real deal. And speaking of publishing, you'll love this, John, a man after your own heart. He's gearing up to write some awesome dystopian science fiction.
Nice. Nice. I have written a science fiction book myself, and it is somewhat dystopian. So we should get together and compare notes. That is very, very cool. Of course, Andy, I have a question for you too. You have so much success in your career, obviously, and you know, kind of my admission of one of the things I didn't know. I always called you Phiture. I thought it was Phiture, you know. So now,
yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, you know. Like, we get called all sorts of things: Phiture, but yeah,
as long as you get
sometimes.
called, right? As long as you get
exactly.
Called. Yep. So my question for you is, tell us one of your failures, your fail whale, your biggest screw up ever.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, so many to choose from. I think one which was pretty embarrassing. I'm not sure if it was the biggest ever. I've probably blanked the really big ones out of my mind, you know, with some kind of, you know, sort of PTSD. But there was the time at SoundCloud when in our retention team, we thought we would, you know, get a better handle on negative signal and look at like, how many people are deinstalling the mobile apps? You know, that's generally quite a good thing to do. We turned on uninstall tracking through a platform that we were using, like a commercial platform that I won't name, because it almost took down the entire SoundCloud platform for some time. Basically, I just
How long?
No, actually, I think like, well, we had definitely, I think about a week or two of like crazy like stuff going on and a lot of chatter in the DevOps channel, which I just happened to observe like in week 2. Everyone was like freaking out about these massive spikes that were happening. We were essentially DDoSing ourselves with this uninstall tracking because of the way it worked. It like fired like a silent ping at 11 a.m. every morning to every single user of SoundCloud or every single mobile app user, which then woke up the app, which then pinged our servers at SoundCloud and put like a massive load on, and it probably cost a fortune as well. So yeah, that was pretty unfortunate.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. That is awesome. Your own custom, self-owned, distributed denial of service attack. That is wonderful. Never do that. I have spent $3,500 on AWS query. That's probably what maybe my biggest screw up. You know, was it all shards? Really? Was it supposed to? But it did. In any case, we got to get to a few things. So we're going to talk about subscriptions. It's going to be a cool show. We're talking about pricing. We're talking about the biggest mistakes we've seen with subscriptions, maybe also how SKAdNetwork is working with subscriptions and the data we're getting back. And maybe we'll even get into something around what we already talked about in news. You know, you can actually create other ways of payment, not just the in-app iOS native payment system. What's that going to do about subscriptions? So we'll get to all that, but first we got to play a little game. We've been serious for quite a while, haven't we? I mean, we've been serious for like 30 seconds here. So we play a little game. It's called mAcronym. You know, it's the mobile acronym game. And we ask everybody, what is a mobile acronym? You think the others don't know, and then the others try and guess it, and then you laugh at them when they fail. So I suck at this game. So just so you know, Peggy is the champ. If you beat her, you win the Bitcoin, the invisible Bitcoin that we give away every show. So Kate, you are first up. What is your mobile acronym that you think the rest of us do not know?
I don't know if it's mobile specific or just marketing, but does anybody know what HIPPO stands for? HIPPO.
Highest paid person's opinion?
Yes, that's it. I just heard that recently, and I was like, what? Especially, I think when you're launching like a new initiative or something, you know, like everybody's coming to the table with a lot of different ideas, and at the end of the day, you go with the HIPPO.
Yep. And you don't want to be the hippo. It's important to not be the hippo because you just got excellent. Love it. Did you show of hands? Did you guys all know that?
I did not.
No.
Wow, good job, Kate. And I feel good about myself.
I want to know
great.
how you knew it, John.
Yeah.
It's amazing the odd pieces of useless knowledge I've collected, and sometimes they become useful. So Jenny, it is your turn. Okay. What is the acronym that you have in your brain that you think we fail to have in ours?
So I recently came across the acronym PSP.
Is it a street drug?
I was going to guess drug.
Maybe.
PSP. Oh.
I'm drawing
I just know the PlayStation Portable.
I know. I was thinking PlayStation. Is it something to do with server, ping server, something? No? Okay, I'm out.
Jenny, put us out of our misery. What is it?
It's a certain page that you visit. It's the package select page. Apparently, it's a thing. I also thought of PlayStation straight away, but PSP it is.
Okay. Well, cool. You are in the running for the invisible Bitcoin because nobody got that one. Andy, I mean, you got to be the king here. I mean, come on. You've written the book, the Bible, as Peggy mentioned, the mobile growth stack. You have access to 100 people to say, you know, what is the most obscure, stupidest acronym you've ever heard? Give it to me right now. So what is your submission?
So I'm going to go with a simple one, but it's like so ubiquitous now that I bet people don't actually know what it stands for. GSM.
Oh, that one. That French thing.
Isn't it about revenue?
It's General Social Mobile. Something or other. Right, isn't it?
Actually, no. You might be thinking of the GSM Association, which runs the mobile growth.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry. Sorry.
Spectrum,
can we please edit this out?
Remember Mobile World Congress? Remember that?
Mobile World Congress. Thank you. That's what I was failing to remember. But GSM stands for Global System for Mobile. It's basically the network that all mobile phones run on these days.
Oh, okay.
They used to be a competing network in the US, like CDMA. So the rest of the world had GSM more or less, and US was still on CDMA. But I think even US is using GSM these days.
Yep, absolutely.
Not even close. My French was for nothing.
I should have known that, Peggy, but your French was a good guess. Okay, guess what? You know what? We actually have to do some work here. We have to do some stuff.
I had one, John.
Oh, Peggy. So sorry. Peggy, what is your acronym?
This I read just the other day in Ad Exchanger. This is definitely new, so you're not going to have this one. DCPM. I'm betting a Bitcoin on this one.
Dynamic cost per melee or impression. Dynamic cost per impression?
No, it's it's brand new, literally.
Well, the CPM we know, right?
Yeah, the CPM you have.
Cost
so
per meal.
You just got to work with the D.
Delta.
No,
Hmm.
I got to push out of
Dumb.
misery, right?
Peggy, put us out of our misery.
Discounted CPM. And what that
Ah,
is
makes
the whole
sense.
idea that you wait for your money, you wait for your payment. So actually, when you think you're making money on your CPM, right, it's actually being discounted because you have invested money to get there in the first place. So actually, what you're earning isn't what you think. That is the idea.
I'm tempted to think you just made that one up to
No,
screw
I
us
did
up.
not. Go look at Allison. I did not.
Uh,
If anyone did, then blame Allison Schiff. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway.
Okay. I love Allison. I wouldn't
No
blame her for
problem, Allison.
anything.
Allison, it's cool. It's cool, Allison.
Exactly. And you will have to choose who wins the invisible Bitcoin. I think you're in the running. I think Jenny's in the running. So we'll see who goes there. But yeah, we do have to do some work. I mean, all this fun and games, like who's actually getting paid here? We got to like extract insight from these incredible brains in front of us right now and bring it out. So that's what we're going to do. We're talking subscriptions. First question I'll take, and then Peggy and I will alternate. So we're talking about subscriptions. Let's talk about pricing. What's the best pricing strategy here? This is challenging, right? Because there's so many variables. There's like, is it one per a certain sum per year? Is it per month? Is it both? And there, what's the relationship between those? Does a big sum look challenging? How many? Andy, let's give you first dibs at this one. What's your pricing strategy for subscriptions?
Yeah, so I'll caveat this, of course, like I normally do, by saying that you have to test this stuff. You know, there is no one size fits all. But you know, what we're seeing, and we're working with quite a few apps now, helping them with subscriptions, and we're also talking to a lot of folks who are, you know, doing subscription optimization. It's a big topic we're super interested in. I think that the companies that are really succeeding here are experimenting with segmented pricing, by which I mean a kind of a dynamic pricing strategy where different users are offered different prices depending on where they're coming in from. So acquisition source would be an obvious segmentation, you know, not necessarily offering the same price to a Facebook user as an organic user, as a TikTok user. You know, they may be different market segments with different propensity to pay, and you can kind of optimize and get incremental revenue by treating them differently. There are also other dynamic pricing strategies that might make sense. So I would include things like you know, differentiating by the handset that they have. If they're coming in on a high-end handset, they've clearly got spending power. If they're in a country or a city, I mean, country bundling is kind of handled a little bit in the App Store, but certainly city-based pricing can be effective as well, we've seen.
Wow. Kate, your thoughts?
So one thing that I have learned from Stash and then a couple of other, you know, my friends in the industry is if you have a subscription that, you know, you have more than one tier, if you have only 2 tiers, you should include a third and create that midpoint tier, because 9 times out of 10, it will actually push more users to select the premium tier because they see, okay, for the $1 tier, I'm getting virtually nothing. For the $3 tier, wow, all this is really interesting. Oh, but only for a couple dollars more, I can actually get all of this and then this also thing. So we've actually seen, you know, virtually nobody selects the middle tier, but it does, we have seen an increase in people who select the premium tier since we added it.
Nice, nice. So we've seen segmentation. Now we're getting psychology. Jenny, what are your thoughts here?
Well, I have to say I can second both of them because at Gymondo, we have used both segmentation and also the 3-tier model, where segmentation, we mainly segment across or amongst different countries, actually, so by region. And then for the tier models, we do offer 3, 6, and 12-month packages for the exact same reason, because we do see a trend towards the bigger packages.
Wow, very cool.
Jenny, I'd like to stay with you for a moment because, you know, there's one way to get people in. We're talking about segmentation and pricing, but, you know, there are other activities that pique your interest, get user attention, clinch the deal for that matter. And you're all about influencer campaigns, influencer marketing, social. What are ways that you're swaying people to work for you in the sense that, I'll start that again. What are ways or campaigns you're using to sway people to get them into that funnel, to keep them there, to actually make them subscribe?
So at Gymondo, we do work closely with influencers in two different ways. We actually work with them on more of a campaign base where we have the influencers promote Gymondo as a platform. And then we have another way where we actually do co-creations with the influencer together so that they get to promote their own product within our platform. And we've seen for sure with both ways, but especially with the second way of the co-creation, that it really just binds the influencer to us as a product and as a brand, but also makes them incentivized to push more and create a stronger call to action, because it is their interest also that is at stake.
Do they have to be aligned with that? I mean, does it have to be the same type, or do you cast a little bit wider net by having an influencer that's just a little bit outside of your target audience?
So what we do is we actually go really deep into the discovery process of how we select influencers so that they actually fit our target group. So we work with tools and we look at the target demographics beforehand, before we even approach influencers, so that we won't have to, approach them and say, oh, sorry, just seeing your stats now and it's not going to be a match. So this is something that we definitely do to make sure that we do have a target audience match.
Mm-hmm.
Kate, I'd kind of like to follow on that question a little bit and just say, are there different ways of marketing when you're targeting subscription customers versus different types of users in your app?
There is, just because the quality of user that you're going after does have to be a little bit higher than if you are just, a free game and you're just looking for engagement as opposed to any kind of like revenue compensation. So it does definitely make a difference. And, we work really closely with our product team to ensure that the events that we are feeding all of our partners are the best and earliest indicators of a high quality user.
Nice. Nice. Andy, maybe I'll turn to you for this one first. What's the biggest mistake you've seen marketers make with subscriptions? Maybe product teams as well. I'll give you leave, answer that however you want.
Yeah, okay. I would say for marketers, definitely we see quite a few apps trying to optimize acquisition campaigns for not like for a late stage postback, basically an event when the user actually turns to a paying subscriber, which, depending on the length of your free trial, if you have a free trial, could be many days or even weeks after the user installs the app. Now that, of course, is the best signal of whether they're going to subscribe. You want to go and acquire more users like that, but that totally trashes the machine learning algorithms of Google and Facebook that need a very fast signal and feedback cycle. You need to be able to fire a postback that gives an indication if this user is going to be valuable, which is tricky because you're likely to do that before they've turned into a full paying user. So yeah, we see a lot of folks struggling with that. And then on the product side, yeah, I see it all the time still, and that's a product and engineering team building one static paywall with no measurement around it. So the only analytics they get is not about any interaction with the paywall itself. You don't see what people are clicking on or whatever, or whether people are kind of looking at different pricing options and investigating them, different bundles or whatever. They just have one static paywall. It might be quite nicely designed, but then it just sits there. They don't test around triggering it in different places. They never iterate on the creative in the paywall or the pricing or anything. And it sits there for a couple of years, typically, because then the product team wants to go on building features. They don't want to go back to the paywall because it was kind of boring to build. So yeah, I'd say that's a huge mistake. Use dynamic paywalls, and if product team is not super excited to build them, you can deploy them as mobile in-app messages, or you can use a platform like RevenueCat or Purchasely, who are both building out sort of paywall optimization stuff.
Jenny, same question. What's the biggest mistake you've seen?
The biggest mistake I've seen, I think, clearly not testing creatives enough or at all. This would be one of the biggest mistakes. Not being clear in messaging is another mistake that I've seen. And then when I speak of a brand perspective and what I've seen, biggest mistakes I've seen from a brand perspective, I would say not actually stocking up on team capacities. This is something that I think all of us might have seen somewhere or even experienced.
Nice. Kate, anything to add there?
No, I definitely agree with both of those for sure. When it came to subscriptions, it was actually really interesting. When it came to the creative, we had been messaging, you can start investing with just $1, and then when they changed something in the product and they said, oh, now you can say start investing with just 1 penny, and we tested that. We tested 1 cent, we tested 5 cents, and actually none of that performed as well as the $1, which was like a really interesting finding, given that that was more money.
Nice. Andy, I want to go back to you. You talked about optimizing on signals for marketing and then not aligning to the cadence that Google or Facebook or the algorithms are looking for, right? And having issues there. Now, let's talk about SKAdNetwork, because that complicates things radically as well. How do you optimize the signals you get back from SKAdNetwork in terms of growing subscription revenue?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think everyone's still figuring that out to some extent. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers there. What we're seeing is, if you're familiar with how this SKAdNetwork's been, implemented, you have basically one postback, right? You can send like one piece of information, so it's kind of important to look at, I think, what is the kind of overall value of the actions that the user is taking during that time before you send the post back. And so, I think what avenues we're exploring certainly is things like engagement scoring, building like a compound value where you look at like maybe low value actions which we wouldn't add much to the engagement score, and then higher value actions like maybe they're visiting the paywall, maybe they're actually subscribing even, or starting a free trial. But it could also be that they're just showing high engagement within the app, and you want to value those things higher. Build basically keep adding to their score of this user before you get a chance, before the postback is actually sent back. So you're sending essentially a compound value rather than a stream of events. So it's a very different kind of model.
Mm-hmm. What's the timing you've seen work there? Because of course you can send it back, after 24 hours, you can send it back up to 7 days if you increment the value. What's the timing that you've seen work best there?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should send it back after 7 days. Again, if you're trying to optimize on these kind of networks that need a quick signal, you want to be kind of doing a quick post back. But I honestly couldn't tell you what's the optimal time right now. We're still figuring that out with a lot of clients as to, and testing a lot of different things. I don't think we figured it out. But in general, for the machine learning algorithms of the networks, faster postbacks are better. But you have to balance that and trade it off against how much value you can encapsulate in that postback.
It's so interesting, right? I've seen from companies like Rovio, they're trying to do it after 24 hours, right? That's a different world, obviously. There's some hyper casual, some mid-core there, right? And subscriptions is often a different world. I've seen 3 days as an option, but I'm guessing, Peggy, if Phiture doesn't have it completely figured out, maybe nobody does.
I would bet on that. But, Andy, I do want to pick up on that because there's some interesting discussion there. You've been talking about it. Kate hinted at it a little bit. Then if you can't figure it out, you have to come up with compound events, compound formulas, compound indicators. What does a really, truly highly valuable user look like who's about to hopefully buy into a subscription? I'll keep it with you for a moment, Andy. How are we going to do that? That's new territory for marketers. It's bad enough with one metric. Now you're going to combine a whole bunch of them and make it up.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tricky, and I think the good news is it does kind of force people to think a little bit more about, what events they're tracking first of all, and why are they tracking them, and what do they mean, right? Because they're not even going to be able to send all of those events to their MMP anymore, or to the back to the network. So they need to, as I kind of alluded to earlier, I think it's this concept of like, what value are the actual engagements of this user? How do you interpret their behavior in the app in a relatively short period of time in terms of like the value that it's going to bring to you and your business as a publisher? And obviously that, a purchase is a great indicator of that, but there could be other indicators that this user is going to be quite valuable and quite engaged, or at least gives you that early signal.
I had to turn around maybe for you, Kate, because the other really interesting thing that marketers grapple with is, when do you give up? When is somebody not worth it? Not worth the effort, not worth the money, not worth the pain? Do you have any views on that you can share?
When a user isn't worth it?
Isn't worth it. You can see the indicators, and you're not seeing the events, but there's a question of how long should you wait? How long should you work at it? And I'm hearing from a lot of marketers that either they're short on patience or short on budget. I don't know which one it is, but that line is getting very interesting. It's like, we're not even going to try life cycle marketing. We're not going to put them in the life cycle.
I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily give up on anybody unless they just install and don't do anything else. But within our funnel, we're finance, right? So we ask a lot of like very personal questions, like your social security number and like a payment source and all this other stuff. And so we actually created an event for the SKAdNetwork called Chargeable, which is, it only fires when a person has put in a valid social security number and then links some form of payment. So that event fires before we even attempt to charge them. And so it does fire pretty quickly for most people. So we haven't really had to, thankfully, deal with, giving up on anybody yet. I would just say any of our partners or campaigns that are running and we see, a lot of installs, or maybe even just like a lot of installs and account creates, which is when a user gives us a username and password to enter the onboarding flow. If we don't see anything past that, we will just pause those campaigns after trying to optimize, because there's only so much you can do,
Well, Peggy, we just learned that Kate is the Rick Astley of mobile marketing. Never going to give up. Never going to give up. That's awesome.
I had to really think there for a moment. I was thinking, do you mean that one? Because I was like, maybe there's a mobile marketer out there I'm not reading. No, it's that one.
That's
it's
awesome.
That one. It's the real deal.
I love that though, Kate. That's super smart. You're firing an SKAdNetwork postback when you're getting a very definitive signal that somebody is actually using your app in a very serious way. They're not, kicking the tires. They're actually entering a payment or a piece of information that's really personal. And that's really quite impressive. Obviously works for fintech, may not work for other areas, obviously. But I love that. That is super cool. I think I'll end with this one. And we hit off, we touched on it briefly off the top. We have this big sea change that we see coming on the iOS App Store. You've had to do payments through iOS. And there's a good thing there, right? Like, I don't want to give my credit card to 50,000 different apps, right? I don't know what your processes look like. There's something good there. It's also super easy, and it probably will remain super easy. So there's some good things there, but it's a 30% hit, 15% in the second year for subscriptions. And you're going to be able to use your own payments. Is that going to really open up the floodgates? Is that going to really change things? Jenny, Kate, who wants to hit first on that one?
I can answer. I don't think it will really change so much what my team and I are doing on a daily basis. I'm sure it's going to be great for the company itself, and it's obviously going to be great for the users. But where I'm sitting, I don't think we'll be making any major changes for it.
Cool. Jenny, what about you?
I think same, really. Also, by the way, my apartment has a bug, so this light turns on and off by itself sometimes. So, in case you're wondering, but to come back to the topic, I think really we're also not going to change anything majorly. I think for us, we are, if anything, going to test more campaigns and also test more campaigns with partners. So meaning with influencers and with other partners like in business development. So This is the only thing that I can see changing right now.
Okay, cool. When you said that my apartment has a bug, I thought you meant literally like a bug, like a mosquito or something like that. And so I said, if you're going randomly like this or whatever, then we would understand. It's all good. Andy, last crack at that question. iOS payments, is that going to change significantly some things for some of your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course the devil is in the detail as always. Much like with the Apple A/B testing, the store A/B testing is, we think it's going to be great, but we have to see how it's implemented. And Apple don't always have a great reputation for rolling out like really solid implementations on the developer side, at least. And I can't imagine they're going to be very motivated to roll out a very nice implementation of this because it's not really in their interest. So, I can envisage that this is going to be a lot more work for developers, to actually implement and maintain not just the current payment system, which is actually already pretty complex to manage, like in-app purchase, all the logic around that, and then update it every time there's a new version of the purchase API. That's why platforms like RevenueCat exist, to kind of manage some of that complexity. Probably going to be good for these third parties who are, doing that kind of, payment management as a platform. I think it's going to be more work for developers. For the consumer, I think it should be good. I doubt the savings will get passed on to the consumer, but maybe some things get a little bit cheaper. And I can imagine maybe at some point I can pay still with like Apple Pay within my, within the App Store experience, but I'm paying on a third-party payment processor instead. I can't really imagine Apple are going to be happy to do that, but they might be kind of forced to. So I think it's just going to be more work for developers, basically, and no real gain for the consumers. But hopefully the developers make a bit more money on the the arbitrage.
It will be super interesting. I will note that one of the things that we learned in the 185-page PDF report by the judge in Epic versus Apple lawsuit is that Epic pulled in about $12 million over the course of 2 months using its own payment mechanism, the use of which got them kicked off the App Store. So people are willing to click out, go to a website, enter in some payment details and buy something. And we'll be very interested to see how that happens. And you're right, Andy. I mean, it's never going to be as easy. Apple licensed Amazon's one-click payment patent way back when. That's got to be 15 years ago right now, right? And will it be step 1, step 2, step 3? Warning, 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 right? You are now leaving the App Store. Be careful. Who knows?
Yeah, right.
What kind of
the red pill or the blue pill, right, John?
Exactly. Would you like to be safe, or would you like to be in danger? Would you like your credit card to be safe and protected, or given to the entire world? So I'm being facetious there, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, we have one thing left. We are going to ask each of you for your top tip for marketers who are kicking off subscription revenue campaigns. But before that, I noticed Peggy's getting a little, it's like, what is it, 10 p.m. for you, 8 p.m.? I don't know. The whiskey isn't quite doing it anymore. I need to give you one more joke.
Oh, good. Come on,
one more joke. Exactly. So we talked last time. You remember I had a joke about bars, right? And all the bars being shut down.
Yeah.
Right? You remember that joke?
I cannot forget that one, John.
Mm-hmm. Well, the bars reopened. They have a vaccine passport now. So Helvetica and Times New Roman walk into a bar. "Get out!" shouts the bartender. "We don't serve your type." Sorry. Okay, got to use the laugh track on that one because I got no audio. And Jenny, I'm blaming you.
Kate was smiling. I saw it. She can't hide it.
Okay, let's kick off our last segment here. One top tip for marketers who are starting a subscription revenue campaign. And guess what, Jenny? I'm going to pick on you first. You are up.
So apart from the, I think, usual tip of testing, I would like to say, with me being here in Germany, a lot of Germans like to do it the old-fashioned way and follow tradition all the time. So what I would like to say is, think outside the box and be brave enough to deviate sometimes, even though your boss might not be happy with that or might not agree with some of the things that you do, sometimes you might still be on the right path, and it might open up new doors for you and the company.
Interesting. So is that deviating from cultural norms or deviating from mobile norms to approximate more closely the cultural norms that you're targeting?
I would say deviate from the norms, as in deviate from the way that things have always been done. So I would say probably also alluding to cultural norms as well.
Okay. Blast open the doors, see what'll happen. Who knows? You might be the first person. You might be on the bleeding edge. You might die on that floor, but you might totally win. Who knows? Awesome. Kate, you are up next. What is your top tip for marketers starting subscription revenue campaigns?
The biggest tip that I have is just to be upfront with the fact that you are a subscription business. We saw like the number one piece of feedback that we were getting from people who would fall off in the onboarding funnel was, we didn't know this was a subscription. So, I mean, doing everything that you can to put that on your banner ads, on your videos, on your website, App Store, Play Store, everything, be very upfront and transparent with the fact that this is a subscription service. So instead of invest with $1, plan starting at $1, and just making changes like that.
I love that. That's so smart. That probably reduces your acquisition costs as well, because otherwise you're targeting right away to people who are open to subscriptions, and otherwise everybody clicks on that. You paid $5, $3, whatever to get that person in the front door. They find out it's a subscription. They're out, and you've done something very smart there.
Maybe also to add something to Kate's tip here as well. One thing I also remembered is always don't disregard customer support. Don't underestimate it, because one thing that we certainly did when we went into the US was exactly that, where we should have known customer support is vital in the US, and we should have ramped up beforehand. So especially for subscription businesses, because there are a lot of questions, especially if you're new in the market.
Wow. Love that tip. Thank you for the bonus there. It reminds me of marketers who are entering China. And in China, people expect instant access to support for their apps and everything like that. So absolutely great tip. Wasn't there another reveal that you were talking about that we were going to have? Like Jenny had something, deep, dark, hidden secret that she was going to share
Jenny
on the
might
podcast?
tell us where we're going to find her. Maybe Jenny might tell us about her new gig. I don't know. Jenny? You're up for it?
I'm up for it. You're going to find me exactly where I am right now in Berlin, and I'm going to become self-employed, and I'm going to start my own business as a influencer marketing consultant. So especially focusing on performance-based influencer marketing.
Very, very smart, John, because that is just really starting in Germany, and this is huge market. Tons of pent-up demand. I won't even talk about budgets, right? Smart move.
I'm coming.
Congrats.
Sounds
Smart
good.
move. Andy knows what I'm talking about. Andy, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great area to get into, and we should talk. We can probably send some work your way. We don't really do a lot with influencers, so we're always looking for good partners to work with there.
Sounds good. Let's connect.
You see, being on the show has multiple advantages, right? Here we are connecting people.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. We ask so little from our guests. We provide so much. You guys have been amazing. Andy, always wonderful to have you. Kate, first time we met, so great to have you. You've been incredible. Thank you so much. Jenny, really, really a pleasure. You know what? If I have influencer marketing needs in the future, talking to you first. And Peggy, as always, what a great show.
Absolutely. More power to you, Jenny. Awesome. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.